A moment like this can change the shape of royal history forever. If you want to stay ahead of every unfolding twist and hidden revelation, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now so you never miss an update. What is unfolding inside the royal household is nothing short of extraordinary. In a decision that has stunned watchers, King Charles has reportedly agreed to allow Camilla to inherit something that goes far beyond a mere financial estate. This isn't about a title or a ceremonial position. It's about passing on something deeply woven into the legacy and identity of the royal family. Something many never imagined would ever leave the line of direct heirs. This agreement is sending shockwaves throughout Britain and far beyond. What makes it so striking is that it isn't the kind of move the monarchy has typically made. Royal traditions are famously steeped in ritual, heritage, and unspoken rules. But this development is signaling something else entirely, something more personal and deliberate. It tells a story about trust, legacy, and perhaps even the future of the institution itself. Behind the walls of palaces that have stood for centuries, conversations have reportedly taken place quietly, out of sight of the press, away from the formal statements and polished appearances. Insiders close to the matter have whispered that these discussions began weeks ago, carefully and strategically. For the public, this is sudden, but behind the scenes, it may have been building slowly, piece by piece, in a way only those within the royal circle could fully grasp. What makes this moment extraordinary is not just what is being inherited, but who is receiving it and what it represents. When a royal inheritance is discussed, the public often imagines castles, jewels, or ceremonial estates. Yet this situation feels different. It is not a quiet legal formality or a routine transfer of possessions. This is a personal agreement made by King Charles himself, one that breaks from expectations. This is not a scenario driven by legal necessity or pressure from advisors. It is something Charles reportedly decided of his own accord, a reflection of how much significance he places on Camilla's position and what she symbolizes in this stage of his life and reign. For generations, certain royal assets have been protected and passed to direct heirs. These are more than possessions. They are symbols of continuity, the beating heart of royal identity. That is why this particular inheritance has captured attention and stirred up such a powerful response. For many observers, the decision appears to signal a change in how the royal family sees itself and what it intends to preserve. There is a sense that an invisible line has been crossed, and what once seemed untouchable is now being reshaped through deliberate choice. Observers have noted that Charles has always carried a complex awareness of legacy. Every gesture, every decision carries a kind of weight in his world. This makes his reported decision even more striking. By granting Camilla a right of inheritance to something so significant, he is not simply showing personal devotion. He is making a statement about her place in the story of the monarchy itself. And in a family where legacy is everything, such a statement is monumental. Within palace walls, this decision may have stirred reactions that the public will not easily see. The royal household is known for its quiet elegance and controlled messaging. But beneath that polished surface, real emotions can ripple. Whispered conversations, subtle expressions, carefully chosen words often reveal far more than any official statement. Those close to the royal family may already be recalculating what this means for future arrangements, for ceremonial expectations, and for personal relationships that are deeply intertwined with duty. Meanwhile, outside those walls, the public has reacted with a mixture of shock, fascination, and fierce debate. For some, it is a touching acknowledgement of loyalty and shared life. For others, it raises questions about tradition, precedents, and the sacred expectations that surround royal inheritances. Royal commentators have pointed out that this isn't just about who receives what. It's about what message the decision sends about the direction of the monarchy in the years to come. The timing of the revelation is only amplifying the drama. With ongoing speculation around estate planning and the future of key royal properties, every move is examined under a magnifying glass. This is not a casual decision made in a quiet moment. It is a carefully timed choice, one that fits into a larger picture that only those closest to the throne truly understand. And yet, What has people talking most is not the technical detail of what Camilla may inherit, but what it represents. It suggests a deep trust, a rewriting of quiet traditions, and perhaps even the cementing of her role far beyond the present moment. If this stands, it will reshape the structure of royal legacy itself. And that is why this moment has the world's attention fixed on it with such intensity.
For centuries, royal inheritance has followed a pattern so rigid that many believed it could never be altered. Titles, properties, and heirlooms were passed down like sacred relics, moving through generations according to protocols written not on paper, but in the very culture of the monarchy itself. That is why what is unfolding right now feels so extraordinary. It is not just an agreement, it is a break from the quiet rhythm of tradition. It has opened a door that many believed was forever sealed. And at the center of this decision is a single, deeply symbolic inheritance, one that speaks to both the past and the uncertain future of the royal household. This is not a matter of money alone. What Camilla stands to inherit is tied to history. It carries with it the weight of countless royal generations. It is a piece of identity, a symbol of belonging to a centuries-old institution. And that is what makes this development so electrifying. The reaction isn't simply because of the value of the inheritance itself, but because of what that inheritance represents. It is as though a quiet message has been sent, saying that the rules are not as unshakable as many once thought. For much of the modern era, inheritances within the royal family have always favored direct heirs. This was not a matter of personal preference, but a rule set in stone through tradition and expectation. Every palace, every heirloom, every precious object that remained within the royal line told a story of continuity. Those rules were meant to protect that story. And yet this agreement has brought those rules into question. If Charles, by personal choice, can alter what once seemed immovable, then the entire idea of how royal inheritance functions begins to shift. Behind the scenes, there is a sense that this decision was not made on a whim. It was the result of long conversations, careful thought, and quiet strategy. Palace insiders have suggested that the discussions surrounding this matter began quietly, without fanfare, long before it became public knowledge. These were not noisy debates, but intimate, strategic conversations. It's the kind of decision that only surfaces when everything has already been set in motion. Those close to the palace understand that the more discreet the discussions, the bigger the revelation tends to be once it comes to light. Those who have followed the royal family for years know how rare it is for anything involving inheritance to deviate from its expected path. The mere fact that Camilla's name is tied to an inheritance of this magnitude is a signal that something profound has shifted inside the royal household. It isn't about public appearances or formal statements. It's about the way those at the very center view legacy, trust, and what they choose to protect. What also makes this development striking is the personal nature of the decision. Charles is not passing something through legal channels simply because the law demands it. Instead, he is choosing to place something deeply symbolic into Camilla's hands. That personal element is what makes this story resonate so powerfully. It's a deliberate gesture of trust and permanence. It's a way of saying that her place in the royal story is not temporary, not ceremonial, but foundational in the eyes of the one who currently holds that legacy. To understand the weight of this, imagine what it means for something that has always belonged to the direct line of heirs to now have its future tied to Camilla. It signals a confidence in her role that extends far beyond the present moment. It suggests that Charles envisions her not as a figure who will fade from the stage when he does, but as someone who will carry a piece of royal identity with her, preserving it in her own way. This has left many royal watchers and historians grappling with new questions. If this kind of inheritance can be shifted once, could it happen again? Is this a singular personal gesture, or is it the beginning of a quiet new tradition? And how will future heirs adapt to a decision that challenges how things have been done for generations? These are questions without clear answers, but they reveal just how significant this moment truly is. As whispers continue to circle the palace corridors, the gravity of this decision grows clearer. What began as a quiet personal agreement is now shaping conversations about the future of the monarchy itself. Every brick of every palace, every symbol of royal heritage, carries a story. And now, one of those stories is about to change hands in a way that no one saw coming. Observers have said that this is not just a gesture between two people. It is a signal that the old rules are not untouchable, a signal that personal decisions can bend centuries-old customs, and most of all, a signal that Camilla's place within the royal story has been secured in a way many believed would never happen. It is this combination of personal choice and historical weight that has created such a powerful reaction from the public, from historians, and from those who understand just how fragile and enduring royal legacy can be at the same time. The whispers that first surrounded this inheritance decision did not emerge overnight. They began as quiet fragments, overheard in corridors and mentioned in passing by those with close access to the inner workings of the royal household. For weeks, perhaps even months, these discussions reportedly happened away from any cameras, away from journalists, and carefully out of the public eye. This is how the most consequential royal decisions often begin, in silence, where every word is measured, and every outcome carefully imagined long before it reaches the world. And when those whispers finally surfaced, they carried the weight of something far more serious than a routine inheritance plan. Those familiar with royal operations know how deliberate everything must be. Nothing of this scale happens without layers of careful preparation. Even personal decisions that appear sudden are often planned for years in advance. This is especially true when they involve assets tied to centuries of heritage. In this case, what has captured so much attention is how this particular decision appears to have been personally shaped by Charles himself, rather than dictated by advisors or formal tradition. That is part of what makes it so startling to those on the outside. It shows intention, not obligation. Behind the grandeur of royal life, there exists a quieter world where trust and loyalty matter just as much as bloodlines. It is in that private world that this inheritance was likely discussed, perhaps over private meetings or confidential letters. Those who leaked early hints described the tone of these conversations as serious and unusually private, involving only a very small circle of trusted individuals. That level of secrecy is telling. It means this was not meant to be part of routine estate planning. It was something deeply personal. For centuries, royal inheritance has followed a logic that is less about personal choice and more about maintaining the continuity of power, symbolism, and tradition. But what is emerging here is a decision made not out of institutional necessity, but personal will. Charles reportedly agreed to allow Camilla to inherit something historically tied to the royal family's identity. That choice shows an extraordinary level of personal trust, and it signals to those watching that he intends for her presence to be permanently written into the legacy of the crown itself. Some insiders have described how carefully this has been framed within the family. It was not announced to the public in the form of a speech or a formal statement. Instead, the news began to spread through well-placed whispers and subtle confirmations, as if the palace was testing the reaction before officially acknowledging it. This pattern is not uncommon in royal history. Often, the most delicate decisions are introduced to the public slowly, giving time for public opinion to settle, for critics to make their voices heard, and for supporters to rally around the narrative being crafted. What makes this development different, however, is that it involves a person who entered royal life later, not as a direct heir, and yet is being entrusted with something usually reserved for those born into the line. That alone makes this inheritance unlike any other. It suggests that Charles is redefining what it means to hold royal legacy in one's hands. For some observers, this is being seen as a personal statement of devotion and confidence. For others, it's a major deviation from the old royal order. Either way, it cannot be ignored. Within the royal household, trust is currency. It determines who is allowed to be part of crucial decisions and who remains on the sidelines. The fact that Camilla is at the center of such a monumental inheritance indicates not just trust, but something deeper. It shows that she has been positioned as a guardian of a legacy that was once thought to be untouchable, and that has not gone unnoticed by those who study royal history. There is also an emotional undertone to all of this. When monarchs make decisions about inheritance, they are not just deciding who gets what. They are deciding how they want to be remembered. They are deciding whose hands will hold the pieces of their lives when they are no longer there to protect them. That is why every decision of this kind carries a sense of finality and emotional weight that goes beyond property or possessions. It reflects how Charles envisions the story of his own reign being preserved. Those early whispers about inheritance may have seemed vague at first, but they grew louder with each passing day. Soon, they became more than rumor. They became something that observers could no longer ignore. And now, with more concrete details emerging, it has become clear that this is not just a passing moment of intrigue. It is a decision that will have ripple effects far into the future of the royal household. Even among seasoned royal commentators, there is a shared sense that this is a turning point. Not a ceremonial gesture, not a simple act of generosity, but a fundamental shift in how the monarchy handles its most sacred inheritances. The fact that such a powerful decision was made in secrecy only underscores its importance. It is not just about what Camilla will inherit, it is about what that inheritance says about the future. And now that the whispers have turned into public conversation, the full magnitude of that choice is starting to come into view. What makes this inheritance story stand out from so many others is that it was not forced upon Charles by duty, law, or custom. It was a personal choice, deliberate and deeply symbolic. That fact alone has transformed what might have been a quiet legal matter into a defining moment in his reign. When a monarch chooses to alter the expected course of inheritance, it is more than a transaction. It is a message. It is a way of showing the world how they want their legacy to be remembered and who they trust to hold it. For generations, the weight of royal possessions has never been measured purely in financial worth. These are not just houses, jewels, or artifacts. They are living symbols of history itself, fragments of a story that stretches back through centuries. For Charles to decide that Camilla will inherit something so significant means he is tying her name permanently to that story. In the private world of royalty, where symbolism speaks louder than any public declaration, that is an incredibly powerful statement. Observers who follow royal affairs closely understand how unusual this is. When a direct heir inherits a major royal asset, no one is surprised. It follows the invisible script written long ago. But when that pattern is broken, when someone outside the line of succession receives something meant to stay within it, the entire perception of legacy begins to shift. It raises new questions about how traditions are upheld, how they evolve, and whether personal choice can rewrite what was once seen as unchangeable. In many ways, this decision reflects Charles's unique understanding of legacy. He has lived his entire life surrounded by history, expectations, and carefully maintained traditions. He knows the significance of every estate, every heirloom, every piece of royal property. So when he chooses to pass one of those pieces to Camilla, it isn't accidental. It's a conscious decision to give her not just the right to possess something, but the responsibility to be part of a much larger story. This inheritance also carries emotional weight that cannot be overlooked. Within royal circles, possessions often carry memories. Every hall, every room, every artifact has witnessed moments that shaped not only one family, but the image of the monarchy itself. To inherit such a thing is to inherit those memories, to be linked to the stories and emotions they hold. When Charles places that trust in Camilla, he is signaling that he believes she will guard those memories as carefully as they have been guarded for generations. People close to the palace have described how deeply personal this decision feels. It is not about creating headlines. It is about making sure that what matters to him is preserved by someone he trusts completely. In a world where so much of the monarchy is bound by rigid formality, this kind of personal gesture stands out. It shows that behind the titles and the ceremonies, there is still a human story at play. It is a story of trust, loyalty, and legacy. Of course, such a bold move has ripple effects that reach beyond the private bond between Charles and Camilla. Within the royal household, inheritance decisions often shape the future dynamics of the family itself. When something expected to pass one way is redirected elsewhere, it naturally creates a new balance of power. People may not speak openly, but they notice. These shifts have a way of changing relationships, subtly or dramatically over time. For some within the family, the inheritance may be viewed as a symbol of Charles's unwavering trust in Camilla. For others, it may spark quiet unease. After all, every royal asset carries not only history but also influence. Who inherits what can affect ceremonial roles, living arrangements, and even how the public perceives the hierarchy within the family. While these tensions may never reach the surface, they often linger beneath it, shaping future decisions in ways the public rarely sees. What makes this particular inheritance even more significant is that it blurs the line between tradition and personal choice. For centuries, royal inheritance has been presented as something unmovable, bound by rules that are rarely questioned. But this decision shows that personal will can still override expectation. It shows that legacy is not just about what was written long ago, but also about what is decided in the present moment. That is why this story has gripped not just royal followers, but anyone fascinated by how power and tradition evolve. The impact of this decision will not fade quickly. Even long after Charles's time, this moment will be remembered as a turning point. It represents a choice to give Camilla a role in the royal legacy that goes beyond the present, beyond ceremony, beyond appearances. It ties her name to something lasting, something future generations will still associate with her. In a world where legacy is everything, that is an extraordinary gift. It is also a clear statement of how he wants the world to remember them both. Inside the royal household, silence can be as powerful as speech. No official statement has needed to be made for everyone behind palace walls to understand the weight of what just happened. The decision to allow Camilla to inherit something so significant has set off quiet but unmistakable ripples. In a family where every gesture carries layers of meaning, where nothing is done without symbolism, this move has undoubtedly stirred emotions, questions, and careful recalculations behind the scenes. Those who know how the royal family functions understand that not every reaction is spoken aloud. There are subtle signs, slight shifts in tone, carefully measured interactions, and new strategies quietly forming beneath polite smiles. A decision of this scale is bound to shape the dynamic among those closest to the crown. While Charles's choice is personal, its consequences are institutional. It does not exist in isolation. It affects how others see their roles, their place in the larger narrative, and what the future might look like once the crown eventually passes on. Among those closest to the center of power, there is likely a mix of surprise, caution, and quiet reflection. This is not the kind of inheritance decision that can be brushed aside as routine. It involves something that many assumed would pass through the expected channels, continuing the centuries-old pattern of direct inheritance. But by breaking that pattern, Charles has forced those around him to rethink what they thought they understood about their future. Even without any public display, the shift in atmosphere within the household is almost certainly palpable. Observers have long noted that the royal family operates within a delicate balance of tradition and personal relationships. When those two forces collide, as they have now, it creates tension, even if it remains hidden from the public eye. The younger generation of the family grew up understanding certain things as fixed, as inevitable. Estates, heirlooms, and symbols of legacy were not matters of debate. They were understood as part of the natural order. But when that natural order is altered by choice, it can leave even the most composed members quietly reassessing their position. While some may accept this decision as a personal gesture, others may view it as a realignment of legacy, a shift that subtly reshapes what future inheritance may look like. It is not necessarily about jealousy or conflict, but about understanding how the future has been redrawn. Even the most symbolic asset carries weight, and when that weight moves from one person to another, it leaves an imprint that will be felt for years. The decision has also raised questions among those tasked with preserving royal tradition. Stewards, advisors, and caretakers, who have spent their lives ensuring that certain assets stay within specific hands, are now facing a reality where personal choice has disrupted a familiar order. Even if they publicly support the decision, privately they may be quietly recalculating how future inheritances will be structured and managed. A single personal decision has the power to reshape expectations that took centuries to build. Outside the family, this story has only intensified public fascination. Royal watchers, historians, and commentators have already begun debating the implications. Some view it as a touching gesture that acknowledges Camilla's significance in Charles's life and his trust in her. Others see it as a controversial move that challenges what they thought they understood about the monarchy. The public conversation is growing louder with each passing day, fueled not only by the decision itself, but by the layers of meaning attached to it. The intensity of public reaction is not surprising. Royal inheritance has always been more than an internal family affair. It is part of a national story, a thread that ties generations together in the public imagination. People may not have a direct say in these decisions, but they watch them closely because they reflect how the monarchy sees itself. By granting Camilla this inheritance, Charles has created a moment that will be analysed and debated for years to come. Some commentators have suggested that the emotional core of this decision is what sets it apart. It is not a cold legal maneuver, but a personal act of trust, loyalty, and devotion. Those who see it in this light believe it reveals something important about Charles's priorities. In a world where public duty often outweighs personal feeling, this decision seems to lean the other way. And that is part of why it has struck such a powerful chord with the public. Yet even as the public dissects this story, the most meaningful impact remains behind palace walls. That is where the legacy is truly felt. That is where those who grew up surrounded by the symbols of royal history are now confronting a new reality. A decision has been made that cannot easily be undone, one that ties Camilla permanently to a piece of royal heritage. And no matter how quietly it happened, no matter how carefully the palace controls its message, that decision will leave a mark that stretches far beyond this moment. Timing is everything, especially in a world built on centuries of tradition. The moment this inheritance decision surfaced was not random. It came during a period of heightened attention around legacy, health, and the future of the royal household. Every choice made now carries more weight, more scrutiny, and more consequence than ever before. And that is why this inheritance is not being seen as just a personal act of generosity, but as a clear statement about the future. In the history of royal families, timing has often shaped how a decision is remembered. A choice made during a time of quiet stability can be quietly folded into tradition. A choice made during a period of transition or uncertainty becomes something else entirely. It becomes a turning point. That is what is happening now. By deciding at this moment to allow Camilla to inherit something so symbolic, Charles has attached this act to a chapter of royal history defined by change. This is no longer just a private matter. It is part of the public story of how the monarchy evolves. For royal observers, the timing raises many questions. It suggests that this decision is not only about the present, but about ensuring Camilla's role in the royal story long after Charles is no longer at the center of it. By securing her position through inheritance, he is sending a message that her connection to the royal legacy is permanent, not conditional. It also indicates a desire to protect that legacy from future uncertainty, ensuring that the asset or symbol in question remains in hands he personally trusts. Inheritance has always been one of the monarchy's most powerful tools for shaping the future. It determines who holds the physical symbols of power, but more importantly, it determines how those symbols are used to shape perception. By placing this inheritance in Camilla's hands, Charles has drawn a line between the past and what he envisions for the years ahead. Even if the crown eventually moves on, this decision ensures that her presence remains anchored in the fabric of royal heritage. This has naturally sparked speculation about what the royal household might look like in the years to come. With Camilla inheriting something so historically significant, it suggests that her role will not end with Charles's reign. Instead, she will remain a central figure, tied to a physical symbol of power and identity. This gives her a degree of permanence that few outside the direct line of succession have ever held, and that in itself is a seismic shift. Royal historians have already pointed out how rare it is for an inheritance of this magnitude to bypass the expected path. In the past, when similar moments occurred, they often marked major transitions in how the monarchy presented itself. This may very well be one of those moments. It represents not only a personal choice, but a redefinition of who gets to carry the symbols of royal continuity. It suggests that legacy is being shaped more by individual intent than rigid structure. Public reaction has only amplified the weight of this timing. Across the country and beyond, people are discussing what this means for the royal family's future. Some view it as a beautiful acknowledgement of loyalty and shared life. Others see it as a moment that could create quiet waves of change inside the family, altering how inheritance is understood for generations to come. Either way, the decision is now a matter of public record, and it will be analysed, debated, and remembered long after the present moment fades. For the royal household itself, this inheritance will become a permanent part of its story. It will shape how future heirs view their own roles, how traditions are interpreted, and how history is told. It may even inspire similar choices in the future, gradually softening the boundaries that once seemed unbreakable. What began as a personal decision may ultimately become a precedent. And that is why, as this story continues to unfold, its true significance reaches far beyond the immediate moment. It is not just about what Camilla will inherit. It is about how that inheritance changes the landscape of royal legacy. It is about how one decision, carefully timed, can ripple across generations. In the eyes of history, this will not be remembered as a quiet exchange behind palace doors. It will be remembered as a statement, a line drawn in the story of a monarchy where personal will has reshaped tradition. In the end, this inheritance is more than a transaction. It is a symbol. It represents trust, legacy, and the enduring power of personal choice to alter even the oldest of institutions. And in years to come, long after the details have faded, the memory of this moment will remain, not because of the object itself, but because of what it meant.